I built my entire life on the Sony X3000 budget gear. I'd never focused on full frame glory hood. Don't it? Get the Donis back there. I get some comments sometimes that say I've lost my way. Have I? It's perhaps a touch.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
So I got an interesting comment we'll get to throughout this video. Just talking about my journey, how I started off promoting like budget gear, and then all of a sudden I'm obsessing over specs and like nothing's good enough for me. What the hell happened to you? So let's just talk about the transitions and the various mindsets it takes to run a camera channel. So in the beginning, when I started my camera channel, I only owned a Sony X3000 for vlogging, a Panasonic J85 with the Mitacon 25mm f/0.95. Manual focus lens for studio stuff, which I hated using. We're actually doing the same basic thing, manual focus on a 50mm. Irritation. Every time you want to do a YouTube video, you're gonna put yourself through that kind of hell. And I also had the Canon SX50 just for a long super zoom bridge cam for wildlife adventures. So like that's all I needed. That's all I ever wanted. It was perfect for what I did. And then Sony kept releasing stuff that would irritate me, and I'm just thinking like, why don't you have a flippy screen? I bought the J85 tiny micro loser bitch because it had a flippy screen and you guys didn't. So like it irritated me so much I actually started the channel when the A7 III was released. I'm like, I've had enough of this. So like I've just started making fun of cameras for not making my dream camera to get me to upgrade from the Panasonic J85. I just wanted like a nicer look. Full frame, I was obsessed about the background blur. Obviously, I bought the 0.95 lens. I thought that's what cinema was made of, and it's not. It's the heart in here that it's made of. You stop down your lens sometimes and you might be in focus. But my initial message of the channel was like, don't waste your money on this high-end gear. Like I'm doing... Most of my shows were on an action cam just in this situation. Window light, action cam, so easy to do. And we just rant about stuff. No one cares about the image quality that much, but you do get sucked into it. Once you see something, it's like, wow, that's kind of nice. But my message was always, and still is, to a point, that you can get by with budget gear. You don't need much. And it's more fun to have the budget gear knowing that you didn't spend much. So you haven't like invested this... People expect too much. If I had a C70 here with like the RF 85mm 1.2 and it was just this bullshit show, you'd be like, what are you doing? I thought it would look better than that. What's wrong with you? Whereas if we're on Canon's cheapest full frame camera, the R8, and a budget lens I found for 200 dingers with a huge gash in the lens, then like, what are you complaining to me about? It's a budget thing. Come on. That brings us to the question we got. For some reason, I was under the impression you and Marcus wouldn't like each other. How dare you? That's rude. We've been friends for a long time, although I think he's mad at me. I don't know, I razzed him about his movie, just little jokes. So I thought we were boys, and I was like, that's a good movie for 100 years old. And then I haven't heard from him since. I think he's literally flying here in one of his flying ships to kill me, but... I'm so sorry, my brother. I did not mean to offend you, but I just released that video on the R8, and Marcus Pix gave us this camera, and it's like, it's my favorite camera ever. Fantastic. There's nothing I would change. Even the battery life. I prefer. It keeps me on my toes, having to replace it. It's like, okay, I wish I had a bigger battery. But the point of his comment, which is what spurred on this whole video, y'all are so different in how you see videography. You're like the textbook example of what he says you shouldn't do. Obsess over specs, film yourself while talking, laugh out loud. Sometimes in his semi-rants, I feel like he's directly addressing you. I also feel that. I also feel that he's like, come on now. You need your C-Log. We joke though, we have fun, I think. I love your movie. But that section of his comment kind of hurt because I realized that I've gotten away from what I started doing, and my whole belief system is like, get the budget gear. You don't have to spend money. Always look for used. You don't need this fancy equipment, and it often looks worse when you do. Remember that no one cares about your blurry background video. The guy spent so much money on a full frame system and a gimbal, and it was heavy, and he was complaining that like he hates shooting now. It's like so much to bring with him, whereas I had my little X3000 that I could just whip out at any time. And it looked like as good, if not more pleasing, because it was stable as heck. Everything's in focus, it's beautiful, audio was good. It's like the budget guy wins in the end. But when I look back over my channel, it's like I do like focus on these specs, and it doesn't even have 4K 240p with C-Log 7. Oh, who would buy that thing? What happened to me? What happened here? Like, I'm focused on X3000 upgrades. So what happened is I moved back home from Thailand. That was my first mistake. Everything in Thailand was super overpriced, expensive. You wouldn't believe it. And the used market was almost non-existent. And so I moved back home to Canada, and I got a message from Marcus Pick saying, "Hey buddy, you want a camera? I got a whole list. Just pick any one you want." And I was like, kid in a candy store going through the lists. And I ended up choosing the Panasonic GH5S with the Leica 12mm Tony 1.4. And so like all of a sudden, I had a new camera for free that was way better than my G85. It autofocused. Yeah, that's what Panasonic did back then. It tried to. And I felt like, okay, we have some dignity now. And I'm making videos on my Vegetable Police channel. And I got this like professional camera. I'm like tapping to focus and locking it and showing you that I eat meat now. Oh my God, I'm a loser. And so it was really nice to have the new upgrade. I didn't think the image quality would look much different than the G85, but like it was better. It was sharper, more dynamic range, even better colors, and it's somewhat autofocused. And the Leica lens, it's like, okay, so we have some dignity now. And then the floodgates came in with donations. I just kept getting, hey, you want this Leica 15mm from the Fugginator? And then Ian Corzine reaches out with the Canon M50 and the A6300 and the GoPro 9 and 10, 11. And I kept getting all these donations. Flatter Santa reaches out with like millions of boxes of Sony gear, full frame, all the lenses. And so like you're seeing me with all this new gear now thinking, oh, where'd you get that? You buy it? No, it's been given to me. I'm so lucky. And so like I'm using all this stuff, and then I somehow became a snob because I love like this full frame look and certain lenses were good, and I haven't spent any money, even though I have spent like probably $30,000 on camera gear. I've sold more to get that. So like I'm not spending money here. That's not my message. Go buy the best gear you can. It's like I sold a bunch of Tamron zooms to get Zeiss glass. And it's like, we're good here. So it's like my message is still the same. Budget, shop used. You don't need much. Go for vintage lenses that have some character. But on the other hand, there is the temptation to want to shoot on nicer gear, and it does look better. And it is nicer. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I agree with Marcus when he's like, I got my RX 100 Mark 7, even though that thing is like $1,800 Canadian. It's not like, oh, this is the budget camera. I could buy this camera for that. I think that was a used price, by the way, on the RX 100. So he likes his budget gear, and you can get just good enough footage. And use 200mm, you get your blurry background. Cool, you can do that. Mic jack right in there. But I like filming on stuff like this sometimes, and you're not going to get the same look on a little point and shoot. It's going to be good enough, for sure, and the Nikon has surprised me. This camera is, in my opinion, the epitome of a Marcus Picks message, where it's like, you don't need much, man, like 8-bit, standard profile, it's fine, no one cares, like, and this has done that. On paper, it's bullshit specs with nothing in it. Why would you ever get this? But the standard profile in 8-bit is magic. And you turn on dynamic range, active lighting, whatever the hell that mode is, it's magical. And it appears to have more dynamic range than most full frame cameras, just with that cheat code in here. Best color science in the biz, autofocus, reliable, stay pretty good. If you turn off sport mode, it's like, hot damn, how do you beat this thing? So on paper, I make fun of these cameras, and then I get them, and it's like, you know what? That's not half bad. It's like, I'm a moron. I'm too harsh on stuff. Like I just released that Insta360 Ace Pro video, and I'm like trashing it, like, oh my god, this high megapixel stupid sensor. AK, what are you thinking? AI? AI? Like, what's the point? The rep reached out to me, and he was like, do you want to talk? Do you need a buddy to talk to? Like, what are you doing to us here? You're killing us. And so, like, I had a good talk with them. They're going to send it to me to review. So it's like, I am too harsh. I don't know why. I get into this mode where I'm like, it's trying to save you money. I mean well here. But, like, I just sometimes focus on all the flaws of cameras, things that people are missing. Like, oh, you could have put that in. That's a cripple hammer. Why'd you take that out? You're protecting another lineup. It fits your budget. So sometimes I'm overly harsh on new releases, just focusing on the spec sheets and what they lack. I'm focusing on the flaws, forgetting that these people are families running a business here. It's like, we're doing the best we can, man. What's wrong with this guy? Nothing can please him. You're happy with the Sony X3000. Why? This is way better. We did good. So I'm sorry. I don't know what it is. I'm just trying to entertain and have fun. I exaggerate. The point is, you can have both mindsets. If cheap is good enough, Sony X3000, we run this whole show on that, is still just as good, if not better. Versus, I like going out into nature and planning a scene, and like, you cannot get better than this R8 with that 85mm 1.2. It just, you're never gonna get that look with a little point and shoot. It's just not gonna happen. Is it important? No. But some of us like setting up that kind of shot, and we like the slow motion and having fun with cameras. So, like, there's a room for both and a balance to be had. You can have that set up on a budget. You don't have to break the bank. Most of my stuff is all used. The most ironic thing about my show is I do have some really nice gear and then the worst lighting in the history of mankind. It's just my life right now. I have this window here. It's so awkwardly placed that there's nowhere to avoid it. If I was facing this way, it would be in the shot, and it's just an ugly square of light. And so, like, I removed my lantern. My small rig light is just pointed at the wall. Just ugly. What am I doing? Like, it's a pinkish gray wall. Why would that be nice colors coming back at me? And we're in auto white balance, asking Canon to decide between those two sources and that lamp. And so, like, lighting is everything. I could totally have a Sony X3000 with perfect lighting and it'd look better than this. Nothing could look better than this. It's Zeiss. Zeiss pop. So me and Marcus, we're not so different. Come on. When you say I'm the textbook example of what he says we shouldn't do, I disagree. We just have very different use cases for our cameras. When he makes videos, he's focused mostly on the photography. So he's setting up all these lights, he's picking a location, he's traveling, he's setting the perfect time. He has a lot on his mind. So when he's filming the behind the scenes stuff, he wants a simple camera that can just turn on, press record, you're done. It looks great straight out of camera. He doesn't have to color grade after, it just looks good. Whereas me, my entire focus is the video. I have no other things on my mind, so I don't need a quick setup and a point and shoot in auto mode. I can set up my scene. I don't mind manually focusing from like 100 feet away. It's like, it's fun to me. It's a challenge. I'm an honest moron. You trust me because I'm being honest, but I don't know a lot. So, like, my opinions may have very little weight added to them. So what do you think? Budget gear versus expensive? Do we need this stuff? If you focus on entirely image quality and your show isn't interesting to watch, then, like, bore me to death with your thousands of dollars of gear. Like, I don't care. Make it interesting, and that's what we should all be focusing on. So that's my advice. After you buy a Nikon shirt. It's the Mimic Monkey. He'll release something new one day. You don't know that he won't. You agree or disagree? Let me know down below. Thank you, Marcus Picks, for the Canon R8. Love it. Fantastic. That 50mm lens, not so much. The Zeiss is better because it's vintage. I'm going to leave now. I've insulted him. Subscribe to my thing. Oh, God, I touched Octavo mic, by the way, with the mix pre-throw 3. I'll leave.